In the late 19th and early 20th century, Europe saw an intricate web of alliances form between nations, a race for colonial expansion and a build-up of military might. This was a time of simmering tensions and rivalries, of nations flexing their muscles and eyeing each other suspiciously. The world was like a powder keg waiting for a spark. That spark came on a sunny June day in 1914 in the city of Sarajevo, when a young nationalist named Gavrilo Princip assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary. The shockwaves of this act reverberated across Europe. Diplomats scrambled, alliances activated, armies mobilized, and ultimatums were issued and ignored. The intricate dance of diplomacy gave way to the blunt instrument of war. A month after the assassination, the first guns of what would become World War I roared to life. The assassination triggered a chain of events that would plunge Europe and the world into a devastating war. By August 1914, the Great War had begun. It involved two main sides: the Allies, which included France, Russia and Britain, and the Central Powers, composed of Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy. As the war unfolded, the Western Front became a horrifying stalemate. The once rolling landscapes of Belgium and France were transformed into a tangled network of trenches. Soldiers on both sides hunkered down in these muddy ditches, facing each other across a devastated no-man's land. The stalemate was a result of trench warfare, a grueling and deadly form of fighting where neither side could gain a decisive advantage. The war also saw the introduction of new, terrifying technologies. Tanks, a British invention, rumbled across the battlefield, shrugging off machine gun fire and barbed wire. The use of poison gas, first by the Germans and then by the Allies, introduced a new level of horror to the conflict. Invisible and deadly, it transformed the air itself into a weapon. But the war wasn't confined to Europe. It expanded, drawing in nations from around the globe. From the sands of the Middle East to the waters of the Atlantic, the Great War became a truly global conflict. Two key battles encapsulate the brutality and scale of the war: the Battle of the Somme and the Battle of Verdun. The Somme in 1916 was intended to be a decisive blow against the Germans. Instead, it became a bloodbath, with over 1 million casualties on both sides. Verdun, fought in the same year, saw the French and Germans locked in a deadly struggle, with neither side able to claim victory. The war was a maelstrom of death and destruction, a conflict unlike anything the world had seen before. New technologies, global involvement, and the entrenched positions of the Western Front all contributed to its unique and horrifying character. Despite the bloodshed, neither side could claim a decisive victory, and the war raged on. In 1917, a significant event shifted the tide of the war. The United States entered the conflict. With fresh troops and resources, the United States bolstered the weary Allies, tilting the balance of power. However, this was also the year of the Bolshevik Revolution, leading to Russia's withdrawal from the war. This change in the Eastern Front allowed Germany to concentrate its forces in the West, launching a final offensive in 1918. The war had been a grueling stalemate for years, but now, with the Allies reinvigorated and Germany increasingly isolated, the scales finally tipped. The Central Powers were pushed back, losing ground they had fought fiercely to gain. Despite the mounting pressure, Germany held out until November, hoping for a favourable peace. However, the peace that came was not what they had hoped for. The signing of the armistice on November 11, 1918, marked the end of the war, but the peace was uneasy. The world had changed irrevocably, and the seeds of future conflict were already sown. In the wake of the war, the world was forever changed. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in June of 1919, imposed harsh terms on Germany, stoking the embers of resentment that would later ignite World War II. Europe's map was redrawn, creating new nations and altering old boundaries. But perhaps the most devastating aftermath was the significant loss of life. Millions of soldiers and civilians perished, leaving a void that would echo through generations. Society and culture were also impacted profoundly. The war ushered in a new era of cynicism and disillusionment, reflected in the literature and art of the time. Moreover, the war set the stage for a second, even more destructive conflict. World War I planted the seeds of discontent and political instability that would eventually blossom into World War II. Thus, World War I, the war to end all wars, indeed left an indelible mark on history. Its lessons still resonate today.